In today's episode, we are creating fun Christmas crafts using items you can find at your local Dollar Tree. I hope you enjoy! For our first project, we're using some of Dollar Tree's wooden dice. They come 3 in a pack. Depending on how large you want to make this project, I'm going to be using all 3 plus an extra one that I had left over from my nativity set that I made last year. I'll have that video linked in the description box below if you would like to see how I created that. So in total, I'll be using 10. I have mine setting on some wax paper just to keep the glue from getting on my work surface. I have a square, and I'm going to be using some Gorilla Super Glue Gel, but you could definitely use wood glue for this. The Super Glue Gel just sets up a lot faster. We're going to glue 4 of those together, making sure we keep them in line at the bottom. Then you're going to glue 3 more together, and it only takes a couple of minutes for it to get tacky, so you can kind of move it around. Then we're going to take those 3, we're going to be stacking it on top of those 4 right in the center. So we'll go ahead and add our glue to that. Just be careful with that super glue gel. You don't want to get it on your fingers because it will definitely make your fingers stick together. Once you apply some pressure and you kind of have that stuck together, we're going to take 2 more, glue those together, attach them to the top, and then we'll take 1 final piece to glue to the top of those 2. So if you want to make it a little bit smaller, instead of 4 at the bottom, you could do 3, then 2, then 1, but I did the 4, 3, 2, and 1. Once that glue sets up, it is very solid. Now we're going to paint it. I'm going to be painting mine with Waverly's chalk paint in the color Moss. This will only take 1 coat. I'm going to make sure I get into all of the nooks and crannies, and I'm going to paint this entire piece, front, back, and both of the sides. Once that has completely dried, I'm then going to take some white chalk paint and a dry brush, because I really want to bring out the outlines on this piece. I'm going to dry brush around all of those round portions on the front, the sides, and the back, and on the tops of each of the ones that are kind of sticking out. I'm going to bring out the round part there, as well as come down the sides. Then we'll set that to the side and let that paint dry. We're going to use 3 of Dollar Tree's wooden stars. They come in a package. We are going to super glue these together, stacking them on top of one another to make one thick star. So it's going to look something like this. While that glue is setting up, we're using one of these pieces from Dollar Tree. It has all of the months and the dates in it. I'm going to use my utility knife to score around the box itself. You can do this about 4 or 5 times, and then you'll easily be able to pop those pieces off. And if you need to, you can go back with your utility knife to trim the remainder off to get it flush with the box itself. Then I'm going to take some sandpaper and go around it to make sure everything's nice and smooth. I decided to paint mine with a white chalk paint. I'm going to paint the entire piece, and it will take about 3 coats. In addition to painting that, I'm going to paint the 3 stars that we glued together, making sure I also get the outside edges. We're also going to use 1 single wooden star out of the package from Dollar Tree and go ahead and give it a coat of the white paint. Once everything has dried, I'm going to come back with some of that moss paint and dry brush around the edges of the single star to really bring out that outline. I'm also going to do that for the stars that we glued 3 of them together, and the box that holds the months and the days, by going around all of the edges, including the sides and the back. Now I'm going to take some stickers that I found at Hobby Lobby. They are white stickers with just a little bit of glitter on them, but Dollar Tree does carry white stickers. And I'm going to place one in the center of each of our wooden blocks. We are making a Christmas tree countdown. Now, I don't have enough to go around the entire tree, so I just did the front of mine, so it'll have 10 days. But if you have enough stickers, you could actually do 28 out of the 31 days in December. Now we can add our star to the top, the one that we glued the 3 pieces together, just by adding some super glue to 2 of the bottom parts of the star and centering that on top of the tree, so it's going to look something like this. And if you want to, you can take the box with the month and days and actually use that as the tree trunk, but I'm not going to glue mine together. I'm going to keep those separate. Using one of Dollar Tree's adhesive glue dots, I'm going to place that on the back of the single star, and you can use that as your countdown on your tree. Those adhesive dots come off fairly easily and they won't pull the paint or your stickers up, so you'll easily be able to move this each day. In Dollar Tree, you can find chip brushes, but you can also find a pack of 3 at Dollar General for $3.75, and they are 3 different sizes. For the 2 smaller sizes, I'm going to be painting the handles with Waverly's chalk paint in the color Crimson Red, but of course you could use an acrylic paint if you'd like. It did take 2 coats to cover up the wording that's on the wooden handles, so you may want to use some sandpaper to try to remove most of that before you paint, and you could probably get by with just 1 coat. For the larger brush, I'm going to paint the entire handle with Waverly's chalk paint in the color Moss, and you don't have to be too meticulous around the metal portion because we are going to cover that. Once the paint is dry, I'm going to take an oil-based Sharpie in the color white, and for the smallest brush, I started off by using the ruler, but then I just freehanded some lines going across the top of it to create like a candy cane design, bring that down on both sides of the paintbrush. And for the other red one, I'm going to take that and just make some squiggly lines at the bottom, at the top, and then some in the middle. Just get creative with it and draw whatever you like on there. For the largest one, I decided to just put a ton of polka dots all over it. Then we'll set those to the side and let that dry. In Dollar Tree, you can find a bag of assorted colored and shaped pom-poms as well as assorted sized googly eyes. Now you could take just the googly eyes. I'm going to take the smallest ones and use those, but I decided to cut the plastic piece off of each one of those and just have that black dot that's on the inside. I cut 6 of those out, and then using my oil-based Sharpie, just put some white dots inside of that to create the eyes. I have a leftover piece of the microfiber cloth that you would find in the automotive section at Dollar Tree. You'll want to cut the width big enough so that you'll be able to wrap the metal portion of the paintbrush, and thin enough that you'll have a little bit of the metal exposed at the bottom. We're going to attach that using some hot glue and wrap it around on the back side, overlapping each other. I'll do that for all 3 of the paintbrushes. Now we can attach the eyes using hot glue to the exposed metal piece. Because the eyes are so tiny, I did find that it was a lot easier to pick these up and attach them using some tweezers, and I could avoid burning the ends of my fingers. So we're going to add 2 to each of the paintbrushes, and then we're going to add a pom-pom right there at the metal piece where the bristles are. I added a white one to the green handle and a red one to the other 2 red handles. Then this is optional, but I decided to create a hanger using some twine by folding that in half and fitting it through the hole at the handle of the paintbrush. Pull that down and then tie a knot at the end, and I'll do that for all 3 of these, and this is how they turned out. I would love to know what you guys think. For this project, we're using 3 different sized wood slices. You can find wood slices at Dollar Tree. However, you can find a very large assorted bag at Hobby Lobby for around $6, and you get a lot more for your money, especially if you can catch them when they're half off. I'm going to take the 2 smaller pieces and give those 2 coats of a white acrylic paint on that center circle, and then I'll let those dry. Then we're going to take some hot glue and we're going to glue the smaller one to the medium sized one. And then once your glue sets up, flip it over because we're going to take one of Dollar Tree's jumbo craft sticks, trim that down and hot glue it to the 2 pieces to reinforce it so that they will stay together. I'm using a pair of baby socks that you can find at Dollar Tree. We're going to set one to the side for right now. The first one we're going to roll up to create a cuff, and this will become our snowman hat. So we're going to pull that down on the sides, add a little bit of glue to each side, and then for the front I'm going to add the glue almost to the top of the wood slice and then kind of frame the snowman's face by gluing it sort of like a semicircle. Then we'll flip it over to the back and add some more hot glue to make sure it stays in place. Using some brown and white twine that I found at Dollar Tree, I'm going to tie that at the top of the sock there, but before I tie a knot, I'm going to pull some of that down to make it look more full right there at the face. Then I can go ahead, tie my knot, and cut my excess twine off. To make like a pom-pom at the top of the hat, just make quite a few cuts, and if you need to, you can trim it down a little bit shorter. I'm going to place some glue to make sure that cuff stays in place, and then just keep trimming it up until you have it looking the way you want it. Then using a pencil, I'll go ahead and draw out the face. In addition to the white acrylic paint, I'm going to be using a black paint and a spice pumpkin. I'm going to fill in the eyes with the black paint and then paint the nose. Once that dries, I'll go back with some white paint to highlight the eyes, and then take a fine tip Sharpie to create the eyebrows, the outline of the eyes, as well as some eyelashes. Then I can create the detail and the outline around the nose, add a few lines all the way across the carrot nose, and then fill in the mouth. Using the other sock, we're going to create a scarf. We're going to cut it on the back side right there where the heel is, spread that out, then we can cut the heel portion off. Because this is pretty stretchy, this will be long enough for us to stretch over and create the scarf. So I'm going to glue that down on one side and then pull the other side up under it, and then really stretch it and glue that side down, and then I can go back and add some glue under the shorter side. Dollar Tree carries a mini jar of buttons, and I've actually had this for a few years now, so you get quite a few, and they are assorted colors and sizes. So I picked out 2 small gray ones to kind of coordinate with the hat and scarf. Now we can set this on top of the 3rd wood slice. To hold it in place, I'm going to add some hot glue. To reinforce it, I'm going to use 2 of Dollar Tree's wooden blocks to glue on the wood slice as well as the back part of the snowman. And if you want to cover that up, you could just add a little bit of greenery to it. For this project, we're going to use one of Dollar Tree's wood round signs. It measures approximately 11 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to remove the hanger and add a layer of Mod Podge, making sure that I spread this evenly all the way across and bringing it to the edges. Because we're going to be covering this with some beautiful scrapbook paper from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to place that down on the wood round, spread it out, and because this paper is really thick, I decided to go ahead and take a piece of parchment paper and my mini iron to go over it to really make sure that the edges seal so that that paper does not peel up later on. And because it's so thick, I decided to trim the excess off with my utility knife because if I was using sandpaper, it would take a really long time. I'll be using some Dollar Tree nautical rope, and because it's a new roll, I'm going to remove the tape off the end, cut that at an angle, and then to make sure it doesn't unravel, I'll take a little bit of hot glue to hold those pieces together. This is going to help it blend a little bit more seamless around the piece. I'm going to glue this around the entire outside of the sign, and I like to do this in small sections to make sure that I can pull that rope tight and everything stays in place. The other end, I'm going to cut that angle in the opposite direction, glue that end, and then I can glue it to the first end, and it just looks a little bit better than if you cut them straight across. I found this beautiful wooden star sign at Dollar Tree in their Crafter's Square section. I'm going to add some antique wax to some water to water that down to create a lighter colored stain and paint the entire front part of this sign. Now because it's kind of watery, it's going to run through the back. So once I flip that over, before I add my stain to the back side, I'm going to take 2 of Dollar Tree's wooden blocks to glue to the center on the back side of the star. You just want to make sure they're the same size so that when you flip it over, it will lay even. I'm going to continue to add that antique wax to the entire back part of the star as well as those wooden blocks. And again, because it's runny, I'm going to make sure I turn it over to the front and spread that out evenly and make sure it has a beautiful coverage. We're also using a wooden nativity craft set that you can find at Dollar Tree. We only need Mary, Joseph, and baby Jesus. Using my handheld miter shears, I'm going to trim that bottom piece off where the craft kit goes together on all 3 pieces, and then using some sandpaper, sand over each piece to make sure it's nice and smooth. I'm going to be painting each one of these with a ivory colored paint. This is going to blend in nicely with our scrapbook paper, and I made sure to get the edges because you will be able to see those. On our wood round, roughly find the center and make a mark with a pencil. You just want to make sure that it is a little bit higher than the squares that you put on the back of your star. Then drill a tiny hole through there, just big enough to feed some of these Dollar Tree LED lights with a very thin lights and wires on it. Because it has 2 wires, I'm going to twist each of these to make sure that they'll stay together. Then we can take the end of our lights and feed it through the back, pull it all the way through until it gets to the thick portion of the wire. Then we're going to take our star, flip it over. It will be enough lights to go to each corner and point. So pick a corner or point that's above your wooden pieces and then glue your lights one to each of the corners and each of the points of the star. Once you have all of those glued down, go back and tighten up the wires that are running from each light. And some of those you will have to twist a little bit to make sure they're tight enough to stay behind the star itself. And then I added just a little bit of hot glue to make sure it stays in place and that you won't be able to see it once you flip this over and glue the sign down. So once you have all of your wires tightened up, we're going to add a very generous amount of hot glue to those 2 wooden blocks, pull our wire back through and glue our star right in the center of our wood round. Now we can attach our nativity scene directly to the star using some hot glue. Now for all of this you could use a more permanent glue rather than hot glue, but if you do use hot glue, don't use an excessive amount, especially when you're gluing the wires down so that you don't melt the wires or the lights. I'm hot gluing some greenery pieces that I cut off of a pick that I already had on hand, and for some reason I thought I had pressed record, but I didn't. I glued the battery pack to the back of the sign facing upward where I would be able to change the batteries, and if you wanted to, you could add a hanger to the back. If you do, you'll need to glue like 2 of the tumbling tower pieces stacked on top of each other so that it will balance itself out. Or you could just set this up on a plate stand. I hope you enjoyed today's projects, and if you have a favorite, please let me know in the comment section down below because I always love to know which one is your favorite. If you haven't subscribed already, I would love for you to click that subscribe button right below the video. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Please take care, and I'll see you guys next time.